Hello and welcome to another update video from us here at PaTMa. I'm Rob and I am a customer support specialist. So today I've got a few demonstrations I'm going to give you from some of our bigger updates that have taken place. This includes the implementation of Section 13 rent reviews, so that process is now live in the system. We have reviewed ownership changes, meaning that if there's been a sale of a property or a property has changed hands, this can now be recorded with historical data, and the financial information will transfer over accordingly in line with MTD as well. We have also looked at updating our agent deduction features, so it's a bit clearer on how to deal with those deductions when they come through. Some other quick mentions that are worth talking about today is we have simplified creating repeating expenses in the system. We have had an update to our APT contracts, so these were put in place last month. We've had another update for NRLA student APT contract templates, specifically for student tenancies. We have updated the expected date rent notification, so if you put an expected date for receiving rent in, PaTMa won't notify you until that expected date has passed. And another previous item we've implemented that's just worth mentioning as well is that you can bulk backfill historic rent payments in the system also. We've had this feature in place for a while, but thought it was worth giving another mention today. So I'm going to take you through the demonstrations for those bigger features, including the rent reviews, ownership changes, and looking at agent deductions. And then I'll link everything that we've discussed down in the video description, so any relevant documentation you can then follow and have a look at there. And you can also set up a free trial for PaTMa if you haven't already tried. Thank you for watching.
To conduct a rent review in PaTMa, first we'll need to select the property and the tenancy that you're looking to review. Once at the property, select the tenancies, select the tenant, and then select actions. You then need to select Add Action and select Rent Review. This then generates the rent review. The first step of the rent review is to have a look at comparable listings. So it shows you what your current rent for the property is, and it also shows you what it estimates the rent could be based on the local market. If I click View Comparable Listings, it takes me through to Market Rent Comparable Listings, which shows me a whole list of different properties in the local area and what their rent is currently going for. What I can do is save these for evidence, so I can save up to 5 properties to use as evidence for the decision I've made around the rent change, and I can send those over to the client as evidence if needed. Once you've decided on the rent, you can also leave notes as well. So if there's any other evidence you want to leave in note form, you can select edit and leave some notes for yourself to send over to the tenant as well if they come back asking why the rent has increased to the point it has. So now I've reviewed the rent, I have the option to do an informal discussion with the tenant. This is entirely optional. You can go straight to issuing the Section 13 notice. However, we have this feature in place so that you can discuss with the tenant in advance. So you can choose to skip it, or you can create a message letting the tenant know what date you're proposing to adjust the rent from and to what amount. With that, a message is then generated with these details in the system. It's fully editable, so you can adjust this as well to your own wording. And then you can email it out to the tenant. It will create a task as well. So in your task list, you'll have a task related to the rent review. And you can come back and check the task to see, of course, if you need to chase the tenant up regards the rent review, or you can close it and move on to the next section. The next section is the Section 13 notice. So it's important to highlight that you have to give 2 months notice before raising the rent, and that is from the point of issuing the Section 13 notice, not the informal discussion. So now that the rent has been agreed, I again put in the date and the amount. PaTMa will check it is at least 2 months before issuing the review. So if I was to put in it's July now, so if I was to put in August and click save, PaTMa would not allow it because it's less than 2 months. So it lets me know the date that I have to issue the rent review from at a minimum. Click save. What that has now done is generated the Section 13 Form 4A, and that will be sent out to the landlord for an e-signature when we select this button. You can also download a preview of the form as well with all of the information filled in. So once the landlord has signed the form, it is also emailed out as a PDF to the tenant as well. The tenant doesn't need to sign, but it is a tracked PDF and they can confirm receipt. PaTMa will also update the tenancy details held in the system to automatically expect the new rent from the chosen date. And that is the full process of the rent review. So, to record an ownership change, you head over to your property, select ownership, and here we can see the current owners of the property. Now I can add a sale or change of owners by clicking this button here. Choose the date that the ownership changed. Click save. Choose the new current owners. So I click edit current owners. And enter in the split. And click save. So we now see we have new owners in place. If I click view ownership history, I can see before the 1st of July, it was owned by Dave Landlord. And then after the 1st of July, it's now owned by this user and this limited company. And it is as straightforward as that. MTD will update to reflect this change as well. So after the 1st of July, the 50% ownership will be for this user and the 50% ownership will be for this limited company. So when it comes to submitting the quarterly return, the demo user here will have 50% of the financials applied to their quarterly return from the 1st of July.
In this section, we're going to take a look at assigning agent deductions. So to do this, we need to go to our banking, select our bank account, and then the relevant entry. So I've got an entry here for £700. This is actually, contextually, £1,000 of rent for Emma Wood, but £300 has been deducted as an agent fee. So I need to look at recording this appropriately. To do so, I'm going to select the Assign button. So I'm now at the Assign section. So I'm going to select the tenancy that the rent is relevant to, which is Emma Wood in this situation. Like I said, her rent's £1,000 and she did pay it fully. I'd know this from having an agent statement. So I'm going to put in 1,000, which is correct. However, you'll now see I have a difference of -300, so I need to account for that. I do that by entering in the relevant expense. So this was for the Fulham property that Emma resides in. It was £300. You can see I put in 300 and now the system's happy. I've allocated exactly 700. The supplier, in this case, was the letting agent company. It was letting fees. There's no need to recharge this to the landlord in this situation. So that's all happy now, and I click submit. The entry is now allocated, and it takes me back to the banking where I can continue going forwards, and it lets me know that the transaction was successful.